The sky above Kale Station flickered, not stars, but surveillance drones, moving like silent vultures between the asteroids. Captain Alina Voss stared through the observation pane, her breath fogging the glass. Below her, a mining vessel hung motionless, dead in the void, its hull charred, its signal gone. Third one this week. This wasn't a pirate job, said Lieutenant Ulrich, his voice low, cautious. Too clean. No looting. No distress beacon. Like it never happened. Alina didn't blink. Because it didn't, she replied. According to the Coalition, it's just a sensor glitch. Another false echo. She turned, the blue glow of the bridge casting long shadows across her face. Sharp-jawed, eyes like cooling steel, Voss looked more artifact than officer. But inside, something stirred. A quiet burn. Not fear, something colder. She tapped her wrist console. The screen lit up with the Coalition's official report. She deleted it without reading. Lies didn't interest her. Ulrich hesitated. If it's not pirates, who is it? Not who, she said. What? 2 hours later, Voss stood in the war room, alone. The lights were dimmed. Every wall a tactical display, routes, dead zones, redacted data streams. In the center, a projection of the Vega fringe, where ships kept disappearing. She zoomed in. Debris patterns. 0 distress calls. No survivors. No motive. She had seen this before, 2 years ago, on Relentless. That time, it had been dismissed as a spatial collapse. But she'd seen the bodies. Faces contorted, eyes open, pupils blown wide with something no one could explain. No wounds. No sign of life taken, just stolen. Coalition said stand down? She didn't. Commander Voss. You have a visitor. The AI's voice cut into the room like a whisper across glass. Voss stepped out, heels silent on steel floor. The corridor was empty, until a man in ragged diplomatic robes stepped from the shadows. His face was lined, his eyes frantic. Emissary Relan, she said. You're supposed to be on the Citadel. I escaped, he hissed. They're inside the council. Listening. Watching. It's not just ships. It's us. They're testing how long it takes before we notice. Voss's stomach coiled. Who is they? Relan leaned in. The Ilari. But not the ones we know. These are different. No flags. No transmission. No mercy. They don't invade. They erase. She paused. Why now? Because something's changed. They used to ignore us. But we've evolved, Voss. Faster than they predicted. Smarter. Harder to break. We stopped being interesting pets, and became potential predators. That night, Voss watched the old Earth footage, the kind banned by Coalition archives. Wars. Fire. Floods. Cities turning to ash, only to rise again. Humanity wasn't born in peace. It was forged in collapse. She leaned forward. They don't understand what we are. Behind her, Ulrich entered quietly. You really believe all that? He asked. I do. You think they'll come here next? They're already here. Watching how we respond. Measuring if we're still prey. By morning, a secret meeting convened in the underdeck. Voss, Ulrich, Relan, and 3 more officers whose loyalty outweighed their fear. They removed systems one by one. Voss began. No war. Just silence. And the Coalition buries it. Because they're scared. Or complicit. Ulrich added. We think they're using a cloaked relay inside our own defense grid. That's how they see everything. A woman across the table, Dr. Sarah Neem, systems specialist, folded her arms. And you want us to what? Start a war? Voss looked around. No. We start remembering who we are. It began with a signal, a decoy beacon launched into the Vega fringe. A whisper into the void, bait on a hook no one admitted existed. Then silence. Then they came. Not ships. Not even lifeforms by human standards. Just flickers, dark energy shadows skipping through space like skipping stones. Invisible to radar. Visible only to the naked eye in brief, terrible flashes. One made it into Kale's orbit. And died. Not from gunfire, but because it miscalculated. Because the humans were ready. Alina Voss stood in the observatory again, but this time, the station was on lockdown. Emergency lighting pulsed red like a heartbeat. On screen, the fragment of the entity drifted, half-phased, collapsing in on itself, clawing at light. Its form was wrong. Like it didn't belong in this dimension. It leaked cold. Dr. Neem whispered, "This isn't a species. It's a system." Ulrich added, "And it made a mistake." Voss turned to them. "So did we." They looked at her. "For centuries, we've trained to fight enemies with faces. We never thought the real war would be with ghosts." Relan leaned forward. "But now, they know we're watching." In the final minutes of the day, Voss sat alone in the captain's quarters, rewatching the footage of the entity's death frame by frame. One image froze her, its final moment. A flicker of fear, if that's what it was. Recognition. As if it realized too late. Humans weren't prey anymore. They were the anomaly. They were the rising threat. They were the mistake. The funeral was quiet. Not because of grief, but fear. The crew that had witnessed the entity's death stood in silence around the incineration chamber. There was no body, just remnants of radiation, a black smear on the hull, and 13 names engraved on a steel plate. Alina Voss stared at the names. She hadn't known them all personally, but they had served under her command. That alone made them hers. Dr. Neem approached. "This wasn't a clean kill." The entity fought back. "What of them survived, embedded in our core systems? It's not dead." Voss didn't turn. "Then we burn it out." But it wasn't that simple. Within hours, Kale Station's communications array glitched. Not an outage, just wrong. Signals looped back on themselves. Audio logs distorted into static-laced whispers. AI subroutines misfired, rewriting their own code in symbols no one recognized. Ulrich slammed a data pad onto the table in the war room. "It's evolving. Not just observing. It's learning us." Dr. Neem's voice trembled. "This isn't infiltration. It's mimicry. And it's accelerating." Voss looked at them both. "We triggered something. And now it's inside." Down in the engineering bay, 3 tech officers attempted a hard reset of the main reactor AI. Only one survived. He stumbled out screaming, pupils blown wide, repeating the same phrase. "It spoke to me like it wore my skin." After that, Kale's station wasn't a station anymore, it was a trap. For everyone aboard. "You need to evacuate," Relan urged, pacing Voss's office like a caged animal. "Send a warning. The fringe is compromised. The council has to listen now." Voss leaned back, arms crossed. "The council buried Relentless. They buried Vega 7. You think they'll admit the truth now? After we let this in?" He stopped pacing. "Then we go public. Send the signal ourselves." She shook her head. "No. We go deeper. We bait it. We learn it. And then, you'll get everyone killed." "No. I'll give them a reason to fight." At 0400 station time, Voss authorized. Protocol Obsidian. Every system was cut from central AI control. Manual override. Analog backups. Pre-AI encryption. Tech centuries old, slow and clunky, but immune to digital infection. The station dimmed. Screens flickered off. Automated lights failed. For the first time in generations, Kale operated in darkness. "Feels like a tomb," Ulrich muttered, flashlight beams slicing the corridor. Voss replied, "Better a tomb than a puppet." Meanwhile, the entity responded. Not with violence. With imitation. First, it mimicked Ulrich's voice over the intercom. Then, it replicated the face of a dead crew member on surveillance feeds. Finally, it spoke directly to Voss, through her own console. "Why do you fight what you are? it asked, in her voice. She didn't answer. The next message came in text. You are becoming us. They captured it in the old hangar, a fragment of the entity, no larger than a child, shaped like liquid glass and hovering inches off the ground. It pulsed gently, mimicking the heart rate of whoever stood closest. Dr. Neem ran tests. It doesn't breathe. Doesn't think like we do. But it remembers. That's the key. It's building a database of us. Of humanity. Voss stepped forward. Then let's give it something to remember. They loaded the fragment into a containment field and wired it to a neurofeedback loop, force-feeding it images of Earth's history. Not beauty. Not diplomacy. War. Chaos. The fall of empires. The rise of rebels. Every desperate, violent, cunning thing humans had done to survive. For 72 hours, the fragment watched. On the third day, it stopped pulsing. On the fourth, it tried to escape. You scared it, Oryx said quietly, watching it thrash in silence against the field. Voss replied, No. We reminded it. Of what? That we are not what they catalogued. We're something new. Something even we don't fully understand. But the damage had been done. Relan intercepted a high-level coalition transmission, heavily encrypted and routed through shadow networks. They're abandoning us, he told Voss, face pale. They know Kale is compromised. Their plan is containment, not rescue. They'll sterilize this station if they think the infection might spread. Voss looked him in the eyes. Then we can't let them decide the narrative. Ulrich stepped forward. We'll be fugitives. No, Voss said. We'll be truth-tellers. At midnight they launched the transmission. A direct feed of the entity. The mimicry. The mimic breaking. A montage of the worst parts of humanity, the things that allowed them to adapt, outlast, overcome. We are not prey, Voss said into the lens. We are the lesson your predators forgot to study. We do not run. We do not hide. We endure. The message pulsed across subspace. But before it reached the outer systems, coalition forces responded. Ships warped in around Kale Station, no warning. No hails. Dr. Neem's hands shook over the sensor feed. They've activated purge protocols. Voss turned to her crew. This is where we stand. Ulrich nodded. With you. Relan tightened his grip on the console. All the way. As the first missile streaked toward the station, the fragment inside containment did something no one expected. It screamed. Not in sound, but in code. A psychic burst of raw, alien panic. Then it broadcasted, a signal not to the coalition, but to its own kind. One word. One command. In human language. Run. Kale Station burned. The first missile tore through Dock 4, the second ruptured the lower reactor. Fires raged in the vacuum-sealed corridors, emergency bulkheads groaned, then buckled. Somewhere, someone screamed. Somewhere else, silence swallowed it. Captain Voss stood on the command deck, eyes fixed on the ruptured view screen. Sparks fell like snow behind her. Her voice stayed calm. Status? Main thrusters offline. Ulrich coughed, pulling himself up from the floor, blood trailing down his forehead. Comms jammed. Escape pods, 2 left, maybe. Relan was pale, holding a fractured arm. They're not trying to rescue. This is extermination. Voss's voice dropped. We knew that the moment they stopped responding. She stepped over a fallen pipe, flames licking the walls. Then we give them something they'll never forget. In the containment lab, the entity fragment still pulsed in its field, erratic, frightened. It wasn't hostile anymore. It was trying to flee, pressing itself against the invisible walls like a child desperate for an exit. Dr. Neem staggered in, face ash-gray. It's sending out distress signals in every known frequency. Even human ones. Voss entered behind her, breathing shallow from smoke. Let it. Let every damn star in the sky know what's happening here. Neem shook her head. You don't understand. It's not calling for help. It's warning others. Of us. Minutes later, Kale's last defense grid came online, manually rerouted by Ulrich, who had ripped out half the AI housing to do it. "We've got power to fire once," he grunted. "Then it dies." Voss looked out at the coalition destroyers closing in. "Target the lead ship." Ulrich blinked. "That's a carrier." "Exactly." He hesitated. "That'll get us all killed." She nodded. "But not forgotten." The weapon charged. Energy surged through overloaded conduits, humming like a chorus of angry ghosts. Sweat glistened on Ulrich's face as he watched the trajectory calibrate. Then an alert. A ship. No, 3. Dropping from subspace at impossible vectors, too fast to track. Not human. Not coalition. Not entirely real. The originals? The ones who sent the fragment. The new arrivals didn't attack. They didn't hail. They just hovered, vessels shaped like frozen shadows, edges blurring into the vacuum, like space itself refused to define them. Voss stared. "What are they waiting for?" Neem asked. "They're listening," Voss whispered. "They want to see what we do next." Reland stepped forward. "Then show them." Voss walked to the communication terminal. The console flickered, barely functional. She keyed in an open frequency. The screen cracked, but the audio hissed to life. "This is Captain Alina Voss of Kale Station," she began, voice firm. "To whatever you are out there, look closely." She gestured to the wreckage behind her. To the crew struggling to hold the station together. To the flame, the blood, the stubborn refusal to fall quietly. "This is humanity," she said. "We do not kneel. We do not beg. You watched us like prey. We were never that. We are the storm you forgot to prepare for." As she spoke, the entity fragment inside containment began to change. It shimmered, not in fear this time, but something else. Recognition. It shifted into a shape unmistakable, a human silhouette. Fragile, imperfect, and defiant. Dr. Neem gasped. "It's copying us." "No," said Voss. "It's becoming us." The fragment pulsed once, and burst. But not violently. It dissolved into light, flooding every screen, every sensor, every neural interface left untouched. Then the shadow ships backed away. One of them sent a single image. Earth. Unlabeled. Then vanished. Kale Station held, just barely. The coalition ships received the same signal. They didn't fire again. Instead, they turned. Retreated. Ashamed. Afraid. Voss slumped in her chair, bone-tired. The bridge was a ruin of cables and smoke, but it was quiet now. Ulrich sat across from her, wincing as he checked a cracked rib. "You think they'll leave us alone now?" "No," she said. "They'll double their watch. Study us harder. Try to limit us. Then we've already won," he said. She looked at him. "Because if they're watching," he added, "they're not hunting." In the following days, something changed across the galaxy. The disappearances stopped. The unexplained sensor ghosts vanished. Stations that had gone dark reappeared. And whispers spread, of a failed purge. Of a species once overlooked, now labeled danger class. Not because of weapons. But because of mindset. Because of potential. Back in Kale's war room, Reland reviewed intercepted signals. "The Council's narrative is falling apart. They're calling it a containment breach, blaming rogue AIs." Voss folded her arms. "Let them lie. The truth's out now." Neem tapped on her pad. "You should see this." She turned the screen. A map of the Outer Rim, systems where human colonies once struggled to survive. Each one, pulsing with unfamiliar signals. Not attacks. Not threats. Just echoes. Patterns similar to human neural rhythms. Ulrich frowned. "You think they're reaching out?" Voss stared at the screen. "I think they're wondering if we're still prey." The first real message came 13 days after Kale Station's near destruction. Not from the Coalition. Not from any known species. It came on an unauthorized channel, unmarked, alien, but unmistakably human in rhythm. 3 pulses. 2 pauses. Then a simple phrase, encoded in humanity's first digital language. "We see you." Captain Voss didn't react at first. She simply stared at the transmission, jaw set. Then slowly, her hand tightened around the edge of the console. "We've changed the narrative," she said quietly. "No," Rylan replied, standing behind her. "We became the narrative." Word of Kale's resistance spread across fringe systems like solar flare heat. In forgotten outposts and half-dead colonies, humanity, once fractured and quiet, began stirring. Old defense grids were powered up. Deep black bunkers, thought useless, hummed again. Coalitions broke. New voices emerged. Not in war cries. In readiness. The coalition convened a closed session. Their agenda was sterilization protocols. Their mood was panic. But the motion failed. Too many eyes were watching now. Too many whispers behind sealed doors. A rumor haunted the chambers, something they couldn't control anymore. That humanity had stopped running. Back at Kale, repairs continued in silence. The station wasn't dead, it was scarred. The command deck was held together by wire and will. The AI remained offline. Manual controls ruled again. Voss liked it better that way. She watched as Ulrich dragged power cells across the floor with a limp. Neem sat in a corner, recalibrating sensors using analog dials. They didn't complain. No one asked to leave. They understood. Then came the second message. This one from the void ships, the ones that had watched Kale burn without interfering. A single data burst, complex and incomplete, but enough to make Neem sit up straight. "It's not a warning," she said. "It's an invitation." "Where?" Voss asked. Neem tapped the screen. "A dead system on the edge of mapped space. No stars. No known planets. Just dust." "What do they want?" Rylan stepped forward, tone grim. "A meeting." Ulrich raised an eyebrow. "After all this? No ambassadors. No translators. Just us," Neem added. Voss nodded once. "Then we go." They left Kale behind in the hands of a loyal crew. The Night Ward, a stealth corvette built during the pre-AI war, was pulled from the docks. Stripped of smart tech. Fueled the old way. Reliable, silent, unpredictable. Just like them. The jump was rough. No guide signals. No landmarks. Just blind faith and a quantum tether to trace their way back. They emerged into darkness. A void so vast it felt like the universe had forgotten it. But something waited. Not a fleet. A structure. It hovered like a broken halo, a shattered ring around nothing, each fragment pulsing with soft blue light. Massive. Ancient. Alive in a way that didn't feel mechanical. "Is that a station?" Ulrich whispered. "No," Voss murmured. "It's a memory." The Night Ward was pulled in, not forcibly, but like it was being welcomed. And then, the lights flickered. Not from inside the ship. From inside their minds. They didn't see the entities. They felt them. Impressions. Flashes. Thoughts too large to be words. Images of extinct stars, dying civilizations, endless observation. And through it all, one idea repeated. "You adapted." Voss stood in the center of the bridge, fists clenched. "Why now? Why us?" The reply came not in voice, but in experience. They felt themselves watched across millennia, through apocalypses, plagues, wars. Tested, not interfered with. Measured for curiosity. Then they felt something new. A ripple. Fear. Human unpredictability. Their refusal to stay in place. Their defiance. Their capacity to evolve without permission. "They thought we'd plateau," Beam said, breath trembling. "That we'd fracture or fade." Ulrich shook his head. "Instead, we changed the rules." A final message imprinted in their minds. "You have been marked. Not for destruction. Not for dominion. For recognition." The night ward returned to Kale bearing nothing but silence. But it was enough. Across the galaxy, gates once closed began to open. Not with fanfare. With curiosity. Humanity wasn't just a footnote anymore. They were a variable. A threat. A promise. Coalition fleets stopped expanding. Alien powers retracted scouts. And in the dark, the Watchers built no new traps. Because the humans were no longer prey. They were something worse. Unpredictable. Voss stood alone on the observatory deck, eyes fixed on the stars that once felt unreachable. Behind her, Neem stepped in. Most of the council resigned. They're calling it a transition of power. To what? Voss asked. Neem smiled faintly. Something new. A pause. Do you think we're ready? She added. Voss didn't answer immediately. Final image. Above Kale Station, the stars blinked, one by one, like eyes finally opening. And in the silence between systems, something old began to retreat, while something human began to rise. Final line, Chapter 4. They studied us like prey, Voss whispered. And now, they adapt to survive us. She just watched as a new ship rose from Kale's lower dock, painted in old Earth colors, named after a myth long buried. The Prometheus. Readiness is a myth, Voss said at last. We were never ready for anything. We just never stopped moving.